7:01. I'm going to call this regular school board meeting to order, and if we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mr. Middlestat, could you please call the roll for attendance?
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Here. In Chesterfield, Michigan.
Mr. Moses,
here, Baltimore, Michigan.
thank you. Mr. Green,
Present, New Baltimore as well.
thank you. Ms. Knox,
Present in Chesterfield, Michigan.
you. Mr. Richards,
Present, Warren, Michigan.
Mr. DeRue,
Here, Madison Heights, Michigan.
Mr. Middlestat, New Baltimore.
Okay. I believe we have a brief presentation. January is considered School Board Appreciation Month. So I believe administration has compiled a presentation for us at this time.
Yes, we do have a presentation for you this evening. As you've indicated, Madam President, January is Board Member Appreciation Month. Local board members are I'm sorry, I got muted there, I guess. So let me.
Yeah, you kind of cut back, at least on my end.
I don't know where I cut off, so I'll start again. Thank you, Madam President. January is Board Appreciation Month. Local board members are exceptional people who are committed to serve and advance education in their communities. They volunteer countless hours, keeping the school district's mission and vision at the forefront. I want to personally thank our 7 members who serve on the Anchor Bay Board of Education and many others who have served in the past. Today, we delivered special gifts to your doorstep, including a lanyard, flash drive, an Anchor Bay bag, and decals. On behalf of administration, the student body, and the community, we thank you for your service. So board members, please sit back and enjoy this special message from our students and our district employees.
It's supposed to be sound, there's no sound.
I can see if I can raise mine up.
Believes in the success of our students. Anchor Bay School Board, for all your hard work and dedication. Anchor Bay believes in the environment.
Oh, just a guess. As a guest. Yeah.
Well, I apologize for the video or for the audio there, but I hope all of our board members understand how much we appreciate their service, from the students to the staff to administration. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rathbun, it looked like that was a YouTube video. Can you email us out the link tomorrow to the board members?
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I know on behalf of myself and probably the other board members as well, you know, the gifts that you left at the doorstep were very appreciated and unnecessary, but very thoughtful. I know for myself, I joined the board, you know, trying to make an impact on the community. But it's nice to see, you know, the video with the students and kind of reinvigorates what we're all here for. And especially in these times when we're not gathering and able to be reminded of those things very easily. So thank you for that. Okay, at this point, we're going to go to open forum. So I would just remind people that you're supposed to adhere to about a 3-minute minimum maximum, and try to submit ahead of time. If for these times with virtual, if we want to raise our hands on Zoom, we will try to accommodate you as well. So I don't know, Mr. Sizemore, if you had any request input for tonight.
We did not have any requests at this point.
Okay. So no requests ahead of time. I'm gonna give it, you know, a good minute or so in case somebody raises their hand, because I know sometimes there is a delay here, so just bear with me. I'm seeing Crystal Ortega.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm driving right now and I did submit a request, but maybe it didn't go through all the way. So since it is board appreciation month for January, so Ms. Berkmeyer and to the rest of the board, Mr. Green, Mr. Moses, Mr. Middlestat, Mr. DeRue, and Mr. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget everybody's name. Thank you guys so much for volunteering your time. And I do hope that obviously we continue to all work together toward, you know, the betterment of all of our community and our students, our teachers, our administration teams, obviously square across the board. I think that is your goal. So, you know, we're starting a new year and it's actually perfect timing that January is appreciation for you guys. So, you know, I wish you guys the best of luck in everything that you're attempting to do and everything you are doing. So thank you for all of that. Some of you I know very well, some of you I don't. So hopefully over time that can be achieved, that we all do work together. I do see a difference in the students' attitude towards things and, you know, adapting to change. So that is a good thing. Mr. Rathbun, Mr. McDonald, you guys keep doing what you're doing. And obviously you guys are going to figure everything out along the way, meet challenges as they come. And obviously what works, I hope will continue, and what doesn't, that we find the solutions that, you know, are best for the group as a whole. So again, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Rathbun and Mr. McDonald and the rest of the team recognize your efforts. I know sometimes thank you is never enough, but thank you guys for all of that. And you know, I hope we continue down this road, you know, that we're on, and just keep doing what you're doing. And if you guys ever need anything or, need some help, I will be here always to support you guys in the good times and in the bad times. So I will leave it at that. And thank you guys so much for everything you're doing and everything you'll continue to do. So again, thank you and have a great, rest of this year. And obviously we're going to move forward with everything else and, get plans in place. And I know you guys will do a great job. So thanks for that. And thanks, Ms. Berkmeyer, for letting me talk.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. I also see Jeff Carruthers.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, I also submitted a request earlier to Miss Berkmeyer, but I don't know why it didn't get received. It could just be a glitch. Okay, a couple of weeks back, we heard that the former school board president thought that his removal as president was, quote, the most set up thing I've ever seen in my life, end quote, and that he'd been, quote, putting my heart and soul into working for this district, end quote. That's funny. I thought I'd said those same things, Ms. Berkmeyer, only a little more than a year ago. While some of what may be considered progress has been made, we implore the current board to address the large number of unanswered questions I'm sure citizens of the district would want addressed. For example, how was the district's investigation of its junior ROTC program independent? The district selected the law firm, approved the investigator, and funded the investigation, and the investigating attorney consulted with the former school board president. The report states that the former school board president, knew about the illegal 8th grade students prior to the start of school in 2019. Why didn't the former school board president take immediate action to ensure the 8th grade students were not in the program at the start of the 2019-20 school year? There was plenty of time to ensure this happened. As the highest governing body in the school district, it is incumbent on the board to correct district violations of federal law when so informed. Why didn't the former school board president submit an affidavit to the investigation? Why didn't the former school board president recuse himself from leading the investigation? Why did the newly appointed interim superintendent, what did the newly appointed interim superintendent know about the legality of 8th grade students in the program, and when did he know it? If he was aware that it was illegal before the Air Force allegedly stumbled across it in October of 2019, why did he not immediately act on this information? Why was the director of student services not held accountable for her role as supervisor? The district's own investigator said, I find the lack of oversight of Carruthers and the junior ROTC program in general to be unacceptable. I don't find ignorance to be a defense, and I do not feel it should have been all on Carruthers to make sure that the principal or the superintendent knew about the reports being submitted. This seems like something they should have been aware was happening and should have been inquiring about and following up with. Why did the Air Force investigator only talk with the then instructor for less than 5 minutes when the investigator came to the district? And why didn't the director of student services, the only other person in this meeting, speak up for a long, loyal employee? Why did the district offer the then instructor a different position within the district? Why were the other instructors, past and present, not held accountable for having knowledge of these violations and not acting to stop them? Why didn't the Air Force simply close the program at Anchor Bay upon discovering such egregious violations for so many years? Form your own opinion, please, based on the facts and these other many unanswered questions. Is this the type of district that this board envisions with no accountability, no transparency, and no integrity? We implore this board to act, and to act at a cost of much less than $422,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this time. So we're going to go ahead and move forward to item 3 towards greater student achievement. So tonight we have two groups here with us to present regarding superintendent search firms to go and present to the board what they could offer to the school board and to the district in our search for a new superintendent. And so we have MASB and MLI chosen to present with us tonight, and they're going to present with us, the board members. What we'll probably do is after each presentation, these kind of things have to be done in open session. So if board members have a question for the presenters following their presentation, to avoid kind of going back and forth, we'll address those then, and then we'll move on to the next one. And then we're going to open up for discussion amongst the board, and kind of to the board's pleasure. If the board members and the board as a whole would like to move forward with a search firm in our search for a new superintendent, we can have that discussion and any action that might be requested at that time. So first I'm going to go over to Mr. Jay Bennett and Ms. Deb McCann from MASB, so the Michigan Association of School Boards, and they are going to present with us. They've been made co-hosts so that they can share their presentations with us, and I'm going to hand it over to them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having us out here tonight. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jay Bennett. I am the Assistant Director for Executive Search Services with the Michigan Association of School Boards. And with me tonight is Deb Macon. Deb is one of our search consultants, does a variety of work with the association and school boards across the state of Michigan. So we're going to talk tonight about how we can help you find your next great superintendent here in Anchor Bay. So a little bit about the MASB difference. We are your organization. We only serve boards of education. We provide unparalleled support. We have, over the past 40 years, completed over 700 successful searches. We have a track record of success. We have a network that covers the nation, and we also have close working relationships with our in-state organizations, MASA, MAISA, and other state education organizations. We have a high degree of process transparency. We also have a application program, which is known as Revelis. This is a program that was written by the Ohio School Board Association. It is used by numerous other school board associations across the country. As soon as we post in our system, it is automatically posted to those statewide systems in those states, and it has expanded our national reach and the number of out-of-state applicants that we're getting for our opportunities here in Michigan. As your association, we exist solely to serve you. We are committed to helping boards find the right fit with a focus on longevity. We have no obligation to place candidates, and we are ever mindful of the laws and public perception. We have a no surprise guarantee. If we hear about it, if we find out about it, you're going to hear about it. So that means candidate backgrounds, anything that we hear in our listening sessions with your stakeholders, anything that comes out in the survey. If it's there, you're going to hear about it. Satisfaction guarantee as it relates to the quality of the candidate pool. If you are not happy with the candidate pool, then we'll go out and do it again at no cost to you. We also guarantee a minimum of a 1-year tenure, and that we will not come back and actively recruit any superintendent that we place for at least 3 years. We know that selecting a superintendent is arguably the most important decision a board of education will make. We know that effective, high-functioning boards tend to have better outcomes related to superintendent search and selection. And we know that the clearer the picture of the type of leader a board is seeking, the easier it is for the search firm to find him or her. Just to kind of give you an idea of what's currently happening in the state as it relates to superintendency, there are currently 12 districts that have posted positions for superintendents. And I can think of, right off the top of my head, another 5 or 6 that have not posted yet, but will be coming soon. So there is, and that includes numerous ISD superintendent openings. And what this means to you is, districts that post first have the first opportunity with the candidate pool. So making a decision tonight is going to get you out there in a much quicker fashion. And I think that is desirable given everything that's happening out there right now. We're usually looking at around a 14-week process. This is something that we can work with boards to either contract or expand depending on your needs. But generally speaking, we're looking at a 14-week process. Weeks 1 through 3. So those first 3 weeks are geared around preparation. So this is establishing the search timeline, planning the stakeholder engagement sessions, developing a compensation range, talking about the kind of contract that you're going to offer, and then publishing that preliminary posting. When we publish that preliminary posting, we want to make sure that we talk about the things that you're proud of in Anchor Bay, that we talk about your small class sizes, we talk about your STEM curriculum, we talk about your 2017 bond, we talk about your award-winning performing arts and athletics, your early childhood offerings, your summer foreign culture club camp, all the things that you as a district and community are proud of. We want to make sure that that comes through in that posting. And one of the ways that we can do that is we can create for you a digital brochure. Now, this is an example of a digital brochure that we created for another district. Obviously, your brochure would have your mascot, your colors, and then the data about your district. This is a way that we can advertise your job, market your job to those candidates that are looking to be a superintendent. Let them know what it is that Anchor Bay has. So when we talk about that stakeholder engagement, we have a variety of ways of getting feedback from stakeholders. So one is an online survey that we can put in the field, and we have a variety of languages available for that as well. We do those face-to-face focus groups, or these days we've been doing a lot of these via Zoom. And speaking of Zoom, we are completely comfortable and have done many searches in a complete Zoom environment. We've done some hybrids where we've done part of them in Zoom and part of them face-to-face. We are perfectly equipped, and all of my consultants are perfectly equipped to conduct this entire process virtual if that is what needs to be done. After those first round of interviews, we also collect some feedback, from your community members that are watching those interviews. We make sure we get all that feedback back to you, and then we also give them an opportunity during the second round of interviews to develop questions, and then again after that second round of interviews, we also collect feedback again. So weeks 4 through 10 of this process, this is kind of the recruitment portion of it. So we do that through in-state marketing. We do that through district website and social media. So your website, your social media. If you as a board member have a candidate that you would like to recommend, we ask you to just give that name to your search consultant. We want board members to refrain from reaching out to candidates because that could be viewed as an interview request, and that could be viewed as a violation of the Open Meetings Act. If you know somebody that you'd like the consultant to reach out to, then we just ask you pass that name along. And if a applicant reaches out to you, we just ask that you redirect them back to the consultant. We can do national marketing at the board's request. We talked already about our Revelis application system, and then we also have that national affiliation of superintendent searchers that we belong to. So other state association searchers, I can call them, ask if they have any recommendations, or if I see somebody from another state, I can call them and see if they have any information about that applicant. So the search team will do some vetting of the applicants as they come in. We'll review all the application materials to determine the match with your selection criteria. So we'll recommend the applicants that we think best match your criteria. You're going to get the information on all of the applicants. So you will see the paperwork on every successful application. And when I say successful application, that means they filled it out, they included the cover letter, they included the resume, they included the 3 letters of reference, they hit the submit button. If it comes in, you're going to see it. Your search consultant will do some phone calls with those applicants, some discrete inquiries, and some networking with other MASB search consultants. And this is all in order to protect the confidentiality of the applicant until they've actually accepted an interview. So weeks 11 through 12, speaking of interviews, that's when we get into the selection of those candidates for interviews, make sure that we're complying with the Open Meetings Act. We believe in the process of folding in public. So you will receive, as I said, materials submitted by all the applicants, and then your search consultant may break that into a tier. So the search consultant may say, okay, you've got 30 applicants. Here's the information on all 30. Of that 30, I think these 15 most closely match what you say you're looking for. Now, if you like somebody that's not of those top 15, then you can talk about that candidate as well, because as I said, you're going to get all of that information. But the search consultant will help you refine that a little bit and help narrow it down by just kind of highlighting the candidates that most closely match what you say you're looking for. During this meeting, we're talking about the candidates only by number, not by name. And we only release those names once they've actually accepted an interview. So during those first round interviews, Those are all held in a board meeting in open session. MASB will recommend, but the board will determine interview questions. We want these questions to be, kind of, we want the questions to be the types of questions that get you the answers that you're looking for, right? And so we want these to be situational. We want these to be behavioral based. Tell us about a time when you had to make a difficult budget decision. What was it? How did you go about it? Things of that nature, okay? We're not concerned with what books they read. We're not concerned with who they'd have over for dinner. We want to know what they've done to prepare themselves to be a superintendent. We want to know what their experience is in being a superintendent, or at least their experience in doing things that are similar to being a superintendent. Generally, during our first round interviews, those are pretty well scripted. Every candidate's going to get the same question in those first round of interviews. And then, as I said, afterwards, we'll have an opportunity for audience feedback. During that second round, board members will have the opportunity to make those reference checks and those background calls between the first and second round interviews. Candidates should be provided an opportunity to tour the facility if that's appropriate. Public meet and greet should be facilitated as well, again, if appropriate. We have done some of these, virtually. The interview can begin the presentation, the interview with a presentation, if that is something that the board would like. So those second round interviews would allow the candidates to start it off with a 10-minute presentation on a topic you're choosing. The interview questions should be specific to the individual candidate. So ideally, you'll start with your pool of applicants. You'll get them down to 6 or so for the first round. And of that 6, you'll get it down to 2 for your final round. And when you think about questions for those final round candidates, you'll think about the things that you heard in the first round that maybe you want a little bit more information on. Maybe they talked about a particular program that they developed in their previous district, and you want a little more information about that. Or maybe they said something in that first interview that piqued your interest, and you want to make sure you get a little bit more information about that in the second. The second round interview can be more informal, much more of a conversation with the candidate, and opportunity for you to get to know more about them and come to that decision as to who you think is going to be the best fit for Anchor Bay. Audience members will have an opportunity to provide written feedback again after those second round interviews as well. Week 13, it's decision time. So the action item is to begin negotiations with. So you're not taking an action item to hire, Mr. Smith to be our next superintendent or Mrs. Smith to be our next superintendent. You are, I would like to make a motion to begin negotiations with Mrs. Smith to be Anchor Bay's next superintendent. So that's the key, is you're beginning negotiations. Once you begin that negotiations process, 2 or 3 of your board members will sit down with the candidate, work out that contract, always have the contract vetted by your local council, and then the formal board adoption of the contract will come back to the board. So once the contract has been settled between that small committee and the candidate, that full contract then comes back to the board for formal adoption. Once you've adopted that contract as a board, congratulations, you have a new superintendent. So that's the process in a nutshell. Hopefully I didn't go through that too quickly. I wanted to leave you plenty of time for any kinds of questions that you have. And so it is that time now. What questions do you have for me?
So I'm just going to open up the floor. Board members, if you want to just unmute yourself, and if you have any questions for Mr. Bennett, feel free to go ahead at this point.
Mr. Bennett, what do these services cost the district?
That is a very good question. And I don't have the proposal out here in front of me. Give me just a half a minute and I will pull it up. So the one thing that I want you to understand is that there are several potential costs to be, that can be part of this process. Now, we'll make sure that any costs that are above and beyond, we vet through the board. So we're never going to put anything down as a cost until it's been approved by the board. Those additional costs can be things such as if you decide to do national advertising, if you decide to do advertising in places beyond the state, if you decide to do any kind of behavioral testing with any of your applicants, things of that nature. If there are any expenses that are incurred by the search consultant. So things such as travel and whatnot, although given everything that's going on right now, if we do this all via virtual, then there'll be little to no expenses from your consultant because there will be no travel time into your district. But those would, again, all those costs are vetted, by you as a board before they're approved. So I'll continue to look that up. Does anybody have any other questions?
Mr. Bennett, what sets you apart from other search firms?
So I think the biggest thing that sets us apart from other search firms is that we are your board association. So we are a nonprofit organization that provides services to boards of education across the state. So in addition to providing you with search services, we also have our 2 attorneys on our staff that are available during this process. We also have the expertise of all of my fellow search consultants that are doing these searches across the state as well. So lots of information that we can gain from talking with our other consultants. Okay, here we go. Any other questions out there that I can answer while this comes up?
How many school districts have used you in the past?
In the past 5 years, in the past 10 years, what kind of time frame are you looking for here?
5 years is fine.
In the past 5 years, over the past 5 years, we've been averaging right around 20 or so searches a year. So approximately 100 or so.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mr. Bennett, while you're searching for that, what is your success rate? What is your completion rate on a search that you've been hired for?
So as far as the completion rate, we are 100% successful in placing a candidate with the, with the district. It has occasionally, although not in recent memory, we have had to have a applicant pool. Like I said, the board wasn't necessarily happy with the applicant pool, or the board wanted to extend the timeline for the search in order to bring in more applicants. That is a rare occurrence, and one that hasn't happened in recent memory that I can think of. As far as longevity of candidates, a vast majority, I'd say probably 95% of the placements that we've done within the past 5 years are still in those placements, or possibly in a superintendency in another district. So they may have moved on from one district superintendency to another district superintendency. I have the proposal here in front of me now. Sorry about that. So the the proposal itself would be $8,200. And so that would be for all the services. And then, as I said, any costs above and beyond that would be linked to things such as the expenses, advertising, things of that nature.
Mr. Bennett,
Yeah.
you mentioned there's 12 searches going on or getting ready to go on here in the state of Michigan.
Yes.
And also the additional cost of national advertising. I know you're not gonna have a concrete answer, but how likely would it be for us to have to go, nationally with advertising?
You'll get some national exposure, for no cost through our application system. So that's going to go out to those other school board associations in other states. And as I said, I've seen some applications come in from some states, and I've asked them outright. I said, well, where did you see, the job posting? And they said, well, I was on my state school board association website and we saw it posted there. I'm like, okay, so that's how I know. It's going to be up to the board as to how, wide a net that you'd like to cast for this position. It's hit or miss on some of the national advertising. I'll be honest with you. For some of the high profile districts in, Metro Detroit that are over, 10,000, the big districts, those tend to be on the radar a little bit more from a national perspective. But there is the potential that you could draw some out-of-state applicants. Most of our out-of-state applicants, honestly, are those that have a tie to Michigan in some way, shape, or form. So they grew up in Michigan, they left, they want to come back, they have family in Michigan, aging parents, grandkids, things of that nature. So they want to come back to Michigan. Because you're not on the southern border along Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, that's where we get a lot of applicants from those states coming into some of the southern districts, up to the UP. As we get to the western side of the UP, close to Ohio, we do get some candidates from those states that want to come over and be a superintendent of the UP. But a vast majority of our candidates are still in-state candidates, and a vast majority of our placements are still in-state.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your response.
Absolutely. Other questions I can answer for you?
I know I don't have any at this time. If you don't mind staying on, we'll go ahead with our next presentation. And if anybody, if you're able to stay on the call, if anybody comes up with any in the meantime, we can kind of bounce back if that's okay with you.
That's absolutely fine. Just one other thing that I will say, if we are fortunate enough to be selected tonight, Deb will be your point person on the search. And Deb, of course, will have all the support of everyone at the office, myself included, and then all of our other search consultants as well. But Deb, who is currently working with Kent ISD on their search as a consultant with one of our other consultants, will be available to work with you as your consultant for this search.
It would be my pleasure.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you as well. Thank you very much. All right, and then now we're gonna, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I do have one last quick question for Mr. Bennett. You mentioned that the $8,200 was the cost, and then you said that there was an additional cost for advertising. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Is there a certain cost associated to the $8,200 already for advertising, or is that an additional cost?
No, so the $8,200, the advertising that's going to be in that, so we will post to the MyStaff website, that is where all the state associations post all of their opportunities. That's where, if Anchor Bay is hiring a teacher, MyStaff is where it's going to be posted. So MyStaff is a free posting. Every education job in the state is posted on MyStaff. So that's the first place that the posting will go. That is at no cost to you. When we put it in our Revelis system, that will go out to the other statewide associations. Again, that is completely free. That is at no cost to you. There are message boards affiliated with our state association. So the other searchers from other states, there's a message board that I can post the job on. Again, that is at no cost to you. The only advertising that you would pay for, if you wanted to put it in, in a local newspaper or a statewide newspaper, that would be an extra cost to you. If you wanted to put it in a national publication, say the American Association of School Superintendents or Top School Jobs, which is where national education jobs are posted. If you wanted to post it in any of those places, there are a couple specialty educational organizations that have job boards, such as the National Association of Black Educators or the American Association of Latino Administrators. If you wanted to post any of those sites, then those would be an additional cost as well. But any of these statewide through MyStaff or through our application system, no additional cost for those.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again. And I will be following up with you either way, following the meeting as well. But thank you for coming out tonight and offering your time.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and then now we are going to go over to Mr. John Silveri. He's with Michigan Leadership Institute, or MLI, and he has a presentation for us as well.
I do. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to submit a proposal and to present to you this evening. Happy Board Member Appreciation Month, by the way. We do appreciate all that you do for students and for your community, especially during these very challenging times. So thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my presentation for you. Oops. All right, you can see that well, hopefully. All right, thank you. So I am happy to be here presenting on behalf of the Michigan Leadership Institute. You have biographical information on me in your written proposal, so I'll spare you hearing all of that. I'm the regional president for Southeast Michigan for MLI. Very honestly, many of the components of the search processes that various firms offer really parallel one another. They do. So the big question I think for boards is who's going to provide you your best chance for success and who are you going to be most comfortable with? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our organization, walk you through what the search would look like, and give you a chance to answer questions. And hopefully that will help you determine whether or not we would be your best choice to help you facilitate this search. We believe we have established the strongest reputation in the state for the quality of our search services. The feedback we get is tremendous. Our process is very thorough, it's very transparent, and it's highly inclusive. High attention to detail and a high level of consultant commitment. In this case, I would be the consultant that would be directly working with your district, and I would basically be stuck to you like glue from the beginning of the search right through the end, readily available at any point in time to assist in any way that I could, and working very hard to make sure that from the very beginning to the end, you were fully informed, very aware, fully engaged, and had no questions, qualms, or concerns whatsoever all along the way. We've been at this since 1998. We've successfully completed about 400 superintendent searches now. I'm proud to be able to say that I've been with MLI since 2015. And since that time, in every search that I've conducted for a school district, the superintendent that was hired is still in place in that district. I'll continue to brag about that until that changes. It's inevitable, one day it will, but for now, it's a perfect track record. We think our expertise really sets us apart. We are a leadership organization. We conduct ongoing research on the art and science of leadership, in particular in the field of education. We facilitate annual academies on leadership in preparation for aspiring superintendents from all across the state of Michigan. We refer to it as the SUPS Academy. We've been doing that for about 20 years. Anywhere from a quarter to a third of the superintendents currently in the state of Michigan are graduates of our SUPS Academy. It gives us a great opportunity to get to identify a large pool of aspiring superintendents, get to know them through our experience with them through that academy. They get to know us, which establishes a comfort level. And so while we don't favor those individuals in a search process, it just expands our reach and our opportunity to recruit on your behalf. Of course, we know the requirements of FOIA and the Michigan Open Meetings Act. We will keep you on the straight and narrow and out of trouble throughout the process. Our consultants are all educators, longtime educators, former superintendents, and so we're experts in the field. We know the superintendency. We know what it takes. We know what's involved. We understand the ins and outs of that, and it really helps us as we screen applicants and recruit for your district to identify folks who have what it takes. Personally, I'll tell you, and I know you saw this, I'm also familiar with the area. I was superintendent in the Marysville Public Schools for close to 6 years, and I live right now pretty close by. I live on the Shelby Township and Rochester border, probably about a 30-minute drive from your district, so I'm well familiar with the area. Our network, it's a team effort. Even though I'm the point person, we collaborate on every search to identify and recruit candidates who will meet your unique profile. Our collective decades of highly successful experience as superintendents and in other roles added to our extensive experience through MLI, not only in superintendent searches, but in strategic planning with school districts, board governance, mentoring, building, and district leaders, et cetera. but we've established deep relationships, contacts throughout the state and beyond that really come to the fore when it comes to recruitment. And I'm happy to say that we've just established a new partnership with the Metro Bureau as well. And we feel like that's now expanded our considerable reach and our professional connections even more so than before. We do provide a guarantee. The search will continue until we have an acceptable candidate. If for whatever reason you were to decide that we got to the end of the search and you were not pleased and feel like you had not found the right person yet, which if you don't feel like you found the right person yet, that's the right decision. If that's the case, at no additional charge other than expenses, we continue on and continue to work with you until we find that right person for your district. I have not personally experienced that as of yet, and that's an exceptionally rare occurrence in the history of Michigan Leadership Institute. If the appointed superintendent chooses to leave your district within 1 year for any reason other than personal health or health of a family member, I would come back and help you conduct another search on an expenses only basis. That has happened in our long history exactly twice. And should you contract with us for quarterly governance, we would extend that guarantee to 2 years. We're invested in your success, which is really important beyond the completion of the search and the hiring of your new superintendent. We really take this very personally, and it's not about just finding someone for you. It's about finding the right person and having you and that individual then meet with great success going forward. Part of that is we'll conduct a new governance team workshop with the board and the new superintendent at no additional cost in the months after they're hired. Additionally, we would be a mentor resource, and that would be myself personally for your new superintendent throughout his or first year in Anchor Bay. That could be a formal relationship, or we set monthly meetings, for example. It could be informal. It always is, and always includes kind of an on-call component too, that person could call at any time for support, direction, assistance. And very honestly, the guarantee is for the first year. I'm still in contact and really still support superintendents that were hired through my searches years ago. I could never turn somebody down if they were looking for support, no matter when that occurred. So I'll quickly go through a sample search timeline. In the first week, we would hold a planning meeting. I would meet with you. We'd go over all the details of the search from start to finish, all the specifics, make sure you're clear on expectations that you should have for me and that I will have for you, our various roles and responsibilities. We'll outline, we'll pick dates and kind of nail down the very specific timeline, which of course I'm giving you a sample. We will tailor this to meet your needs and make sure that it does not conflict with anything else that you have going on in the district. So we'll come out of that meeting and you should have a very clear picture as to exactly what to expect. In the next couple of weeks, I would meet with designated stakeholder groups to gather input on the development of a candidate profile in an organization and community profile. So the candidate profile is really critical. There may be people out there who are very well equipped to be successful superintendents, but maybe the right place for them is not Anchor Bay. This is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. So together, you're going to provide input to me, and I'll reach out to your stakeholders too. And we'll look for the common threads that emerge in terms of the skills, qualities, and characteristics that you feel the next superintendent of Anchor Bay needs to possess in order to be highly successful for you. We'll also develop an organization and community profile. And I typically ask for kind of the high level top 5 or 10 things about your district that really stand out that you're particularly proud of. And we use that to create that profile, which we use as recruitment in the posting. And then after we collect all that data, I would develop the formal posting. Before that's published, I would share it with you to make sure it's totally accurate, to get any additional feedback you may have. And then we'll go ahead at the end of that 3rd week and get that out there for everyone to see. So it gets quiet for you during about a 5-week period. We have the position posted typically for 5 weeks. Due to confidentiality reasons, I'm not telling you who's applying during that time. If you were interested, I could update you on the number of people who have applied. Even that can be misleading. Quite often there's a surge towards the end. So, but just know that for the most part, I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes. You're kind of sitting anxiously waiting for that process to complete. But I'll be reviewing the applications as they come in. I'll be contacting applicants just to assess the seriousness of their interest, to ask any questions about their applications I may have. Do some vetting of them too, do some background checks. We don't do formal reference checks just yet, again, due to confidentiality. But again, this is where our networking throughout the state really comes in handy because we're able to learn a lot about these candidates without really doing formal reference checks. And when I do share the applicants with you, I will share any and everything that I've been able to find out about these candidates for you. You need to be as well informed as possible to make a great decision. So in week 10, after that posting period ends, we will have a meeting. We'll go into closed session, which is the one time in your entire process you can do anything behind closed doors per the Open Meetings Act. Again, due to confidentiality expectations of the applicants, we're able to go behind closed doors. At that time, I'll share every single applicant with you. You'll know everybody who applied. You'll know some basic information about all of them. I'll have their application materials for all of the candidates on hand to share with you. I do group the candidates to help you along and put them into 3 different categories. There's an A group, which are the candidates who most closely fit your profile and have the greatest requisite experience. There's a C group, who are the people either who do not meet your qualifications or where there is some type of red flag that I would bring to your attention. And then there's the middle group, the B group, who are qualified people who you may well have interest in, might not quite rise to the level of the first group, but still folks who are certainly capable and who you should consider. I stress that I'm not picking your candidates to interview for you. You can select any of the applicants, no matter what tier I've put them in. I do that just to simply move the process along and help you. That's my only intent. I actually had one district that decided that they wanted to learn more about a candidate from the C group. They decided to interview that candidate, and ultimately that candidate became their next superintendent, which really illustrates the point again. I help you by organizing them. You make the decision. Typically, in just about every search I've done, it's 4 to 6 of the applicants that the district chooses to interview. So we go into weeks 11 and 12, first and second round interviews. In the first round, we schedule 90 minutes per interview. It can be pretty intense. In that planning meeting initially, before we leave, I'll share a bank of interview questions with you that you can choose from, but you can also add some questions of your own. And so we'll develop those interview questions together. I'll have those ready for you on the first night of the interviews, have it ready right in front of you to work with. Interview questions are the same. The order of the questions are the same. The person that asks are the same for all of the candidates in that first round. You have audience participation. Anybody who's watching and listening, we encourage them to provide feedback. If it's in person, we have feedback forms we give them to fill out. We collect those back. We make copies for each of the 7 board members to put them in your hands for you to consider. So by the time you're done with those first round interviews, you would have interviewed 4 to 6 people. You will have had the interview responses to the interview questions from your own notes to review, and you'll have the feedback from all of the folks who watched and listened to the interviews, as well as the application materials and any additional materials the candidates will have provided to you, which they virtually always do. So a lot of data to use. Quite often boards will come back for an additional night after the interviews to take a little bit of time to deliberate. I'll take you through a process of deliberation to help you narrow that field from those 4 to 6 down, hopefully to 2 finalists, which is ideal. But there are occasions where boards have said, boy, it's too close. We really need to bring 3 people back. Of course, we'll accommodate that based on your needs. So after the second round interviews, well, let me go back. In the second round interviews, I talked about how inclusive our process is. This goes back to the creation of the candidate profile and district profile, the feedback you get from people watching the interviews. We separate the second round interviews into separate nights, and then we bring the candidates in typically about noon or so. And throughout the course of the day, they're interacting with stakeholder groups that you have selected. So whether that's a group of administrators, teachers, parents, community members, labor leaders, high school students, you'll make that decision. But whoever it is, the candidates will meet with those groups. They'll have a chance to ask the candidates questions. We ask that you not be present so they can be free to speak their mind and be very forthcoming. But we do press them again to provide written feedback that we provide for you. So that's another bank of information you're going to have. So finally, week 13, we recommend site visits. That's a subcommittee of the board, so no more than 3, who would go to the work site of each of the 2 finalists. You'd have a chance to interact with people that your finalists work for and with, to ask additional questions and to learn more. The feedback we've gotten from the boards that we've worked with has been really strong, and many of them have felt like this was the deciding factor, especially when it was really a close call for them. They felt like they really gained insights into the candidates in a way that they could not from any other part of the search. So we strongly recommend it. So we help structure it. I wouldn't go with you, but we'd have everything worked out. So it would be kind of easy for you to go and ask those questions and be able to come back and provide feedback to the other 4 board members who were not able to go. Not to make a recommendation, but just to say, here's what we saw, here's what we heard. And it's one more bit of very helpful information in order to help you make this huge decision that you're facing, which would then take place in week 14. You come together, you would make the superintendent selection from among the finalists. There's still a negotiation to take place. So you will not have hired the superintendent yet, but once the negotiation is completed, you would come back, you would formally adopt the contract and hire your new superintendent. Again, this is a sample timeline. When we were to meet in the planning meeting, we would kind of work it all out in specifics, so you would know exactly when all of these dates occur and exactly how long this would take. We will conduct the search process for the professional fee of $6,200 plus direct expenses, which typically include mileage and copying costs, not to exceed $800. It typically doesn't hit that amount, and because of my close proximity to you, it's not likely to. In the event that this has to be virtual, of course, it's even that much more likely that it would be less because it wouldn't include mileage. I do want to reassure you, by the way, since last March, I have done extensive virtual components of these searches. In one district in Olivet, Michigan, we literally did the search from the very beginning planning meeting through the decision of the board, totally virtually, and they were happy with the process and happy with the outcome. So if we need to go that route, I have a lot of experience, successful experience. We'll make it work, but hopefully we'll be in a position to do as much of this as possible in person. Leadership is our business. That's our mission. We're here committed to supporting the success of public education by developing, and supporting outstanding executive leadership. That's what we do. And that's what we're here to help you with, to find your next leader, to find that outstanding superintendent for anchor-based schools. So with that, hopefully I've covered kind of the key points, and I want to open it up to you folks for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Silveri, you mentioned a new partnership with the Metro Bureau. Can you explain what that is and how that's beneficial?
Metro Bureau is a service organization that primarily serves the Tri-County area of Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne counties, but they do have participating agreements with other districts beyond that. I'm not sure if you folks are Metro Bureau districts, but they provide training, workshops, support for school districts. They have a heavy level of interaction with district leaders, not only superintendents, but central administrators and even principals. So in terms of their connections to school districts, their familiarity with people in leadership positions and familiarity with many people who may be aspiring to be superintendents. They will be for us a great resource as we look to find folks who may be a great fit for Anchor Bay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Silveri, where do you advertise and look for candidates?
We advertise in the state of Michigan, and it's primarily through the Michigan Leadership Institute website, MASA, and in Frontline. We almost always get out-of-state candidates in our searches. I will say that we could advertise beyond at an additional cost or whatever this cost would be nationally if you so chose. Through our experience, we find that that really doesn't reap a lot of benefits, and we really don't believe it's necessary. If there are candidates out of state who are looking to move to Michigan, back to Michigan, whatever the case may be, they know where to look. They know where to find the vacancies. They look at where we post these positions and they submit those applications. I also find very honestly that it's a bit more tricky to look at the out-of-state candidates and to know as much about them as you may want to increase your comfort level. We find that in the vast majority of cases, Michigan districts end up hiring Michigan administrators for their positions, and those tend to be most successful.
Okay.
Mr. Silveri, how many superintendent searches are you currently working on now?
Currently, I've just begun work with the Springport schools, and I have 2 other districts that have enlisted our services. They've not yet begun their searches yet. Most recently, I have assisted South Lyon School, Lake Orion, Brighton, Taylor, which are all districts that are comparably sized or larger than Anchor Bay. I would be happy, by the way, I'll just say this, if you so desire, I do have letters of reference from several of those districts. If you had interest, I'd be happy to send them your way. And I would invite you, again, the satisfaction level of these districts is very high. I'd invite you to reach out, talk to your board colleagues in those districts, and I'm totally confident you'll be happy with what you hear.
Okay.
If no other questions, I'll just say that the most important thing here is that you have a high level of trust and confidence in what's happening with your search, and so does your community, so do your parents, staff members. Best compliment I've gotten is from a district is you made the process easy, but the decision hard, meaning that we made the going through the process very easy because we laid it all out for people and kind of held their hand all the way through, kept them well informed, et cetera. The decision was hard for them because they had a high level of quality of their candidates, and it made it tough to choose. But the feedback we get is that even from stakeholders, even from community members, they feel like they've been a part of it. They feel confident that the board has gone about this in the right way, which I think in many respects can be almost as important as the ultimate decision that you make. So I'm confident that we would deliver that for you as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Not seeing any more questions. So at this point, board members, I'm going to open it up for discussion amongst if anybody has comments or discussion amongst ourselves, and or if anybody feels inclined to make a motion, or if the discussion is to wait, or I'm going to kind of leave that open for the board to decide.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion to hire MLI to be the superintendent search company.
I would second that motion, Madam President.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? I have a motion from Mr. Middlestat and a second from Mr. Green to hire MLI as the superintendent search firm. Is there any further discussion on this topic?
I guess my question is, and it's not argumentative at all. It's just why MLI over MASB? What's kind of persuading you or, having you make that motion?
Well, I know working in the past, Metro Bureau, their association with Metro Bureau, the gentleman is local ties, and they don't seem to have a lot of other searches that are ongoing.
I would agree with Mr. Middlestat. I like the fact that we're using somebody that's from, Southeast Michigan, a superintendent that's regionally, up in the Thumb is where I think he said he'd been a soup for 6 years. And the fact that he's doing the search himself added a little bit of value to me as well.
Thanks. I appreciate your responses.
Any other comments or discussion? Okay, well, hearing none, Mr. Middlestat, if you would like to call the roll on the motion to hire MLI as a superintendent search firm.
Mr. Middlestat, yes. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Birkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Silveri. I will be reaching out to you. And I also just want to thank Mr. Bennett and Ms. Macon for your time tonight. We appreciated your time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move forward on the budget presentation. I'm going to take that over to Mr. Rathbun. I'm not sure if it's you or if Robin is going to be presenting.
Tonight, Robin will be presenting.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. As Mr. Rathbun indicated, I will be presenting the amended budget this evening. I know that towards the end of our presentation, Mr. Rathbun will interject his comments and help answer questions if needed. So I'd like to take you to the first slide, which is a summary. If you could advance, Tim, thank you so much. This is a summary of our actual audited final budget for the year 2019-2020. And as you can see at the bottom there, our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures is roughly 2.93%. As a calculation of treasury, that would turn out to be around 3.86%. Our actual final audited came out better than expected due to our conservative budgeting. And I want to bring your attention to the next column, which focuses on this year, fiscal year 2021. In the first column, you'll see your board approved original budget. As you recall, back in June, you approved this budget based on board approved amendments to this budget. And this is in fact the original budget that you approved on June 24th for the fiscal year 2021 for this year. The next column over is our projected proposed amended budget for this January. In this budget, I'm going to go through in detail with you, broken down by revenue, expenses, and our fund balances in the slides to come. But I do want to bring your attention down here. As you can see, the total revenues exceeded what we thought in our original budget. And the majority of that is based on our COVID dollars that the district received. And I do have a slide that I will show you all the dollars that the district received in COVID funding. As we move down to the expenditures, you can see that expenditures are roughly $66 million, which, as you can see, the revenues over expenditures are going to be roughly $500,000 expense over revenue. We're projecting that our audited beginning fund balance is 1.8 million. We're projecting that ending balance as of today, as a snapshot in time today, would be $1.3 million. So that fund balance will be roughly 2%, slightly under 2%. Tim, if you could advance to the next slide, please. So in this slide, I'm breaking down the revenue for you. As you can see, compared to the original budget, which the board approved back in June, the local sources have reduced or decreased by $575,000. The major contributing sources in the loss of the local revenue, as you can imagine, are the impacts of COVID. So that would come in the form of use of our district-wide facilities, facility rentals, facility leases. Our aquatic center was closed due to COVID and other related activities admissions. Moving down to the state sources, those increased over our original budget, and those increases were relative to the restricted state revenue in the form of our retirement system increases. There were also increases in those allocations by our state grant allocations. Moving down to the federal sources, you can see there that's $3.7 million, almost $3.8 million. These dollars increased from the federal COVID relief grants. And as I indicated, I'm going to illustrate that in a future slide for you so that you can see the breakdown of COVID relief that the district received. Keep in mind, please, that the COVID relief grants are a one-time disbursement to the district. And when we're talking about these relief funds, we have to remember that the revenues must match the expenses. So every dollar received must be spent on a correlating COVID-related expense. So some of the examples of these grants under the COVID dollars, and you're probably going to hear Todd and I talk about ESSER funding. I want you to know that ESSER stands for Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Funds. Some of the funds that the district received under that grant category are in the form of CARES grant relief funds, district COVID funds, CARES funds for the child care relief funds, coronavirus relief funds, and as of lately, ESSER 2, which is the second round of stimulus grant funds. And those funds were discussed back here in December, right after the holiday break. Moving down to the local sources increased, and that's that incoming transfers, increased roughly $80,000. And that's largely due to our enhancement millage that we're receiving. So just to sum up this slide, the decrease in the local sources in combination with all of the increases in the state sources, you can see that there's a local revenue increase of roughly $4.2 million.
Just a quick question. Explain that incoming transfer 85. I thought that came from places like cafeteria funds or other funds. Explain how that's enhancement millage.
Well, originally with the enhancement millage calculation is based on taxable values for all property. Our calculation was based on the spring 2020 membership count. The local revenue per pupil for that is roughly $450.
Robin?
So, yes.
Let me jump in for just a minute.
Sure.
I think Steve's question is, why is it in the incoming transfers? And Steve, one of the reasons for that is just the way we account for that. The millage is actually levied by the ISD, and then it is passed through to the locals. So we would track it in that incoming transfers and really other revenues.
Okay.
That's why it's showing up in that category.
Thank you, Todd. Moving on to the expenditures. If you could advance the slide. Thank you, Tim. So here I have broken down the expenditures. You can see there, the middle column is our amended budget. The column to the right shows the increases and decreases. And the total expenditure increases are roughly $4.7 million. And I want to explain to you the reason for those increases. I want to take you back to those COVID dollars that we spoke of. So once those dollars are recognized on the revenue side, they also have to be recognized on the expense side. So going through these line items, the reason for those increases are the expansion of virtual instruction. We offered in-person and virtual learning options at our elementary schools. The district has absorbed additional expenses incurred with the Federal Paid Leave Act. Paid leaves, paid sick time, as well as substitutes needed to cover COVID absences. We've had increased unemployment cost. We've had increased needs for instructional supplies for both in-person and virtual learners. And we've also added additional supplies as outlined in the district COVID-19 plan to ensure student safety. We've purchased technology in the form of student devices. We've purchased technology for Microsoft licensing for those students' devices. We've purchased jetpacks and web filtering. And we've purchased district-wide PPE, personal protection equipment, in the form of sanitizers and district-wide PPE supplies. Of course, we've also had staffing overtime to meet the needs of the deep cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting of all of our buildings and spaces district-wide, adhering to the Anchor Bay School District continuity and return to learn plans. There's also been increased expenses related to the district's executive administrator as approved at the December 16th meeting. So in summary, I know I've said a lot, but all of the things that I have bullet pointed for you, you'll be seeing through all of these line items, through the instruction, through the total support services. Everything that I've mentioned is a culmination of that $4.7 million. Tim, if you could move on to the next slide, please. Once again, we're talking a lot about COVID grant dollars this evening, these one-time grant dollars. And I've put a summary together for you of all of the grant dollars that the district has received. As of lately, we received the ESSER II second stimulus grant funds. The total is $4 million. Tim, if you could advance, please. So in summary, we're to the bottom of our summary here. You can see for the proposed amended budget, our revenues over expenditures are spending more in expenditures, roughly $500,000 more. Our beginning audited fund balance is $1.8 million. Our estimated fund balance at this point in time is $1.3 million. The total fund balance as a percentage of our expenditures right now are roughly 1.9%. I know that Todd has some additional information he would like to share in regards to some recent legislative updates. So I'd ask him at this time to share that with the board.
Thank you, Robin. Happy to do that. So as Robin talked about, we have received enough information about the allocation for the second stimulus package that was passed by the federal government back in early January. And so we have included that, as she indicated, in the budget. And that was a $1.158 million for the ESSER grant. We have also accrued expenses related to that grant as well, because I think Robin touched on it. With a federal grant, we only receive revenue if we have an expenditure that matches. So we were not going to include the revenue without adding or including accrued expenses on that grant. So those are included as well in the budget. Beyond that, there has been some additional conversation of late. These items that I'm about to talk about are not included in the budget. Too speculative at this point. We don't know the exact amounts or when we will receive those, but I'd like to share this update with the board. Recently, Governor Whitmer came out with a proposal where she is taking some of the discretionary funding under ESSER that went to the state, along with $300 million that she talked about from the Rainy Day Fund to send to schools. That will be under her proposal, which would require companion legislation from the legislature in order to become law. Under that proposal, however, Governor Whitmer is indicating that those funds would go towards the schools and would be allocated on a per pupil basis. The allocation that we're estimating that we would receive under that basis is about $2.2 million. And again, that is a grant money, so it'd be dollar in, dollar out. The other good news that we received is recently with the election of President Biden, we have another economic stimulus package that is in the works, roughly $1.9 trillion. That would relate to about $130 billion nationwide for K-12 schools. That is, again, would be allocated very similar to the way the ESSER grant was based on Title I allocations. And one of the things that I would tell you is the ESSER, the first stimulus that was passed back in January was about $54 billion that went to K-12 schools across the nation. So the second stimulus, or the first under the Biden administration, maybe the third stimulus we should call it, is about $130 billion, about 2.5 times what we received for the ESSER II funds. So we're estimating that to be in the neighborhood of $2.8 to $2.9 million. So the good news is that would be roughly $5 million of funding that we may receive in the near future here, depending on if everything plays out as I've discussed here tonight. I will caution the board to remember, again, those are dollars, those are grant dollars, which require $1 of expense for every dollar you recognize in revenue. So certainly we can use, the intent of that is to use those grant dollars over the next couple years to remediate and to educate our students. They have certainly missed face-to-face education. They've fallen behind as a result of pandemic learning. I don't think that's news to anyone. And we know that we've got a large task ahead of us to remediate and catch our kids up to where they should be. And we have a lot of dollars to do that. So certainly we'll be working very diligently in the days ahead to come up with programming and instruction and curriculum that will allow us to do that into the future. And hopefully we'll have these federal dollars as well as some state dollars to be able to do that. So Robin, do you want to finish up your
Sure. Tim, the next slide.
and then we'll open it up for questions.
So we've also provided our fund equity balance over the last several years, and we're doing this to show you that last year we fell below the early warning signs for financially distressed school districts, and we're falling slightly below that again this year. So we'd like you to keep that in mind going forward. that our target goal is really 5% fund equity balance. We'd like to be at 5% or higher. Todd, do you have any additional comments on that?
No, I think that actually it's beyond the 5%. Quite frankly, I think we want to be looking at, you know, between 7.5% to 10% would be an ideal area for us to be. I think that allows us to have the financial cushion to weather things just like this that we're in when we have, you know, a pandemic or something like that hit. That obviously gives you funds to address things like this. And so my recommended fund balance would be between 7.5% and 10%.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So we're to that point in the presentation where if you do have questions, Todd and I would be happy to answer them.
Okay, so any board members with questions, go ahead.
I've got comments. The same speech I made last year when we approved the budget is we need to stay, we can't be having more expenditures than revenue. As you saw on that chart, it's going to be a long battle to get back to 5%, let alone 7.5%. And the reason you can give people salary increases and everything can be stable in the district is to have that fund equity above 5%. The current budget puts us below that, but as I mentioned previously, that any cut that you don't make today means you need to double the cut tomorrow. And we can't have expenses exceeding revenue at this point in our thing, because 21, 22, we're not going to expect a enrollment increase, and we're going to be in bigger trouble in terms of that percentage. I don't see how we can sit back and not set an objective for the administration to balance the budget. And I know it's a difficult task, and there's a million reasons why. And all these COVID grants and that don't help the bottom line in the budget. It helps our students because we'll get that extra help and money. But again, in terms of being able, the ability to provide raises to our staff, we can't give raises to our staff if our fund equity is below 5%, and you got to start somewhere. We started last year by, you know, we were in the same position last year, and I made a statement, and the board agreed that we should balance the budget. Now, I know we didn't get a lot of local revenue in, but we knew that probably 3 or 4 months ago that the revenue wasn't going to come in locally. And there's a series of things that we can do, but I can't see us as a board. I mean, the budget is of all the policies the board makes, the budget is what we tell the administration what we expect for the year. Now, I'm not saying I want to change the amount of money in the staff for the maintenance. I'm saying the bottom line number should be breaking even. And that's basically what we should be doing based on having, like I said, having the ability to be financially stable in the future. We need to do that. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I don't know if your connection is funny, but I was able to hear you still, and I think everybody else could still. It just was coming across a little slow at times, like how Mike does occasionally. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to correct it at all, but I was still able to make out what you were saying. So I hope everybody was as well. Does anybody else have any questions for Robin or Todd or comments as well?
Yeah, I do have a question. What are we doing right now to watch our expenditures?
Can you elaborate on that a little more? Maybe you can help me so I can answer your question better.
Yeah, I mean, just concerning when we look at where we are, you know, and our expenditures are going up, and when I look at, you know, operations and maintenance, you know, with that 924,000, is that predominantly PPE? Can you maybe help me understand?
Okay, sure. Yeah, great question. I'd be happy to answer that. So it is a portion of it certainly is PPE. You may remember that we purchased a number of barriers across the district, plexiglass, the foldable barriers for our students. It also includes a lot of overtime. We have asked our custodians to work overtime. We've asked additional staff to work beyond some of their normal hours to help to sanitize the buildings and go through. All of that money certainly is being charged into that particular function for the maintenance and operations. Mr. Richards, any additional costs? So for example, if we ask any of our custodians or any folks that work in that functional area to quarantine, or if we had any emergency FMLA, any emergency paid sick leave act, all of that would have been charged into that function as well for those people. So it's really a combination of all of those. We don't really see any additional increases to our normal operations in that area.
All right, thank you.
And I will just say to kind of add on to what Steve said, I can't disagree with Steve at all. I would like to see our bottom line much better than it is today. What I will tell you is that, you know, as we make decisions across the district and as the board makes decisions, there are certainly financial consequences to those decisions. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make some of the decisions that we've made, but there are financial consequences. And I'll give you one example. We made a decision early on to go to a split in the elementary to have teachers that were teaching 100% virtual, teachers that were teaching 100% face-to-face. I think we all agree that that was what was best for our students, and we would likely make a similar decision today because we know that's what's best for our students. However, we added at least 5 to 6 teachers to do that. There's a financial cost to doing that. And so, again, I'm not suggesting that the board was wrong or should not have acted in the way they did. I think it was certainly in the best interest of our children, and that's what we're here for. But there was a financial impact to that decision. And so, you know, those continue to be difficult things to overcome in terms of our financing. And we'll continue to work very diligently at making sure that we are cutting costs, that we're being as frugal and efficient as we can with our taxpayer dollars. We understand we are stewards of the taxpayer dollars and take that charge very seriously.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move along to the general business. Bills payable, I believe that would be Robin again.
Yes, thank you. So before you this evening, you have the monthly reports, I'm sorry, you have a summary sheet by fund and the supporting detailed check register that's been included for your review. It's for the month of December. And the December expenditures totaled $902,399. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions at this time. I know I did get a few in advance. I do believe that we've answered those questions, but if I can be of further assistance, please let me know.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the bills payable for December 2020?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Moses. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Knox. Mr. Middle, any discussion? Sorry. Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Middlestat, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Brookmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox, oh, I already got you. Ms. Knox, I got her. Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes.
All right, motion passes. Moving on to the proposed IRS closing agreement on 3%. Mr. Rathbun, were you presenting that?
Yes, I'll be presenting this tonight. This is a bit of a strange proposal for the board to consider. Let me start out by saying that Troon Law Firm had suggested that we bring this to the board. The board would have the option to either participate or not participate. I believe I provided a fairly extensive explanation of what is occurring here, but I will briefly cover that again. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. So back in 2010, there was a significant change to the retirement for teachers and staff that work in the public schools here in Michigan. They had to start contributing 3% of their pay towards their healthcare retirement. At the time, it was not clear whether or not those 3% contributions were subject to FICA and Medicare tax. In 2010 to about 2012, the district made taxable payments. They treated it as if it were taxable, collected tax money from the employees as well as the district, paid that to the IRS. Sometime after that, the IRS had some additional rulings on that. We received further guidance from ORS. And I believe in 2018 was the year we actually filed with the IRS to receive a refund of all of those tax dollars for both the employee and the district that were sent to the IRS. We received those in full. Once the money was recovered by the district, we returned the taxable portion to each of the individuals that had paid their tax and returned the tax to the district. So at this point in time, we have essentially finished this process of requesting back the taxes on the 3%. And therefore, our position is we are whole as a district. Our employees are whole. There's really no reason to enter into this IRS agreement because the district has completed all of its work associated with this particular agreement. So we have talked with our ISD. The ISD has indicated that they are in agreement. If we have been refunded and we have received everything we're due, there's no reason to enter into this agreement. So before the board this evening is a proposal to either enter into the agreement or to decline the agreement. My recommendation, along with the MISDs, is to decline entering into this IRS agreement.
Can you explain just for the audience as well, because I know we have some more information, but the agreement, what the agreement would be doing for us if you entered, or well, for districts that maybe did not get made whole, what the agreement would be
my
doing
answer
for
to
them.
you, Ms. Berkmeyer, would be that it's not going to do anything for us.
Right.
But yes, I'm happy to. So Anchor Bay was able to quickly remedy the taxes that were paid to the IRS, receive those back and refund them back to their employees and back to the district. Unfortunately, other districts across the state of Michigan were not always so lucky. Sometimes it came down to which IRS agent happened to review your request for a refund. And in some cases, I know right here in Macomb County, all the districts filled out the paperwork the exact same way, used the exact same verbiage, submitted it at about the exact same time. And some districts received their refunds and were able to provide funds back to the employees. Other districts were stonewalled by the IRS and told, you're not entitled to this refund, and we're still arguing with the IRS, 2 and 3 years later after Anchor Bay's already received its refund. So in an unusual step, the IRS actually has granted standing to ORS, the Office of Retirement Services, to request a private letter ruling from the IRS. And that is what this is. And basically the IRS has said, now we will treat all of the districts the same way we treated Anchor Bay. And if you haven't received that treatment, it would be recommended that you join in this group that is petitioning for the private letter ruling so that you could receive the same treatment as Anchor Bay. But since we've already received that treatment, I wouldn't recommend reopening this position with the IRS again.
I'd like to move that we not participate in the agreement.
Okay, motion by Mr. Middlestat
I'll second.
and seconded by Mr. Moses. Any further questions or discussion by the board? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Middlestat, you could call the roll, please.
All right, Mr. Middlestate, yes. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Burkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, motion passes. So moving on, we're going to go to a budget resolution.
Yes, thank you. Before you this evening, you have the budget resolution as proposed for the amendments for the fiscal year 2021 budget. Is there approval for that motion?
So I would be opening it up to a board member if they'd like to make a motion to approve the budget amendment for 2021 as it was presented by Ms. Randazzo tonight.
Well, I would make a motion that we approve the budget, but that we don't exceed revenues, expenditures don't exceed revenue.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the budget, but with the dictation that we don't exceed expenditures exceeding revenue. Is there a second for that motion?
Just, can I ask for clarification as to what we would do in a situation like, obviously we didn't plan on going below the revenue this time. Is this, if we have to hire subs, do we cancel school that day because we don't want to employ subs to go below? I mean, I just don't want to hire hands.
Right, so Mr. Moses, you were cutting a little bit in and out, but I believe what he was asking was, is this motion, Mr. Rathman, would it be tying hands a little bit on approvals to move forward with things like getting substitutes or paying or anything if we were to approve it in this fashion?
I think we've done a very comprehensive job of looking at all of our expenditures and all of our revenues right now. As I said, we have accrued some of the ESSER monies into the budget. Those are not spent at this time. We believe spend those on very similar things to what we spent in the first semester, and that is COVID-related leaves, COVID-related quarantining of our staff, additional PPE, additional overtime for sanitization and so forth. So my short answer is to you that we have tried to cut as much as we can possibly cut out of the budget. At this point in time, if we were to make deeper cuts, it would start to get close to the classroom and would start affecting your programming. We just don't have enough in supplies or other areas that we can cut that would not start to affect programming.
So there's no administrative, I'm not talking about classroom.
Mr. Middlestat, I just want some clarification too. I'm understanding your motion is you're requesting that Mr. Rathbun cuts out $492,715 between now and July 1st.
I'm saying that would be the goal and objective. If we get to that point and we don't get there, we don't get there, but just to sit back and allow it to be overextended is what I don't agree to. To be honest, I'm not sure if we could do that in a half semester, but I guess I don't want to sit back and say, okay, I'm satisfied with this, that we don't try to get some more cutbacks out of the system without affecting students, of course.
Yeah, I'll be happy to speak to that. Certainly, Steve, I don't argue with you at all. I don't want to dip into our fund balance at all either. I can assure you, we will continue to work hard to identify cuts away from the classroom that we can make. If there are administrative reductions that we can find, certainly we're going to go after those first. We know that making cuts to instruction at this time is not ideal. But I want to assure this board, we have spent a lot of time and effort looking into all of the cuts. I don't believe there are easy cuts to be made at this point. The next round of cuts are very difficult cuts. If you'll recall, earlier in the year, we cut about $1.5 million out of the budget. Additionally, if you look at the revenues that were reduced in the local, that was about $500,000. We've also had some additional expenditures that have come through beyond just the grant expenditures. And even despite that, we're still holding, at under $500,000 loss. So I'm with Steve 100%. We will continue to work very diligently at cutting expenditures, but I want to be very frank with the board to say, and our goal will be to be break even, but I want to be very frank with the board to say at this point in time for us to go back to the drawing board and cut $500,000 out of the budget will require some very difficult cuts and will likely impact students in the classroom.
Yeah, I guess the last comment I'll make is that, if the only way we're going to be able to afford any increases for staff is that we got to get that fund equity up. So, I mean, that's the other caveat is I don't want to cut student services, but can't, the staff expects increases and I can't, justify doing that. So, Madam Chairman, I'll withdraw my motion at this time and then I'll vote my conscience on the actual motion if someone makes to approve it.
Okay, so motion is withdrawn. Would anybody else like to make a motion to approve the budget amendment for the 2021? Mr. Moses will make the motion. Is there a second? Do I have a second for the motion to approve the budget amendment?
I will second.
Okay. Seconded by Ms. Knox. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Middlestat, please call the roll.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Birkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
No.
Mr. Richards,
No.
Mr. DeRue,
No.
Mr. Middlestat, no.
So just a quick comment on that. Actually, Mr. Middlestat, I was going to support your motion. I just want to know
Okay.
exactly
I'm
where
sorry,
you were
flipped the
going.
switch
so.
too quick.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. the 500,000 is a lot to try to come back up with. I know that the motion failed. I too have that same concern. You know, the 500,000 is a big chunk of money. So like I said, had you left another second, I was going to support you. But I agree that we can't, you know, as a finance committee, we met in the fall. We talked about this. I believe at that time, Mr. Middlestat made a motion that this needed to be a net zero kind of year. You know, and here we are halfway through the year and $500,000 in the hole when the board's wish was to be net zero. So that's why I voted no.
Well, again, I'll make the same motion then that the expenditures not exceed revenue as a target and goal, and we'll see how we get there by the end of the year.
I'll
Okay.
support that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Middlestat to approve the budget resolution amendment, for 2021 with expenditures not exceeding revenue, and seconded by Mr. Green. Any other further comments or questions? All right, Mr. Middlestat, please call the roll again.
Mr. Middlestat, yes. Mr. Green,
Yes.
Ms. Birkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Next, we have a resolution for board meeting dates. Board members have in their packet proposed dates for additional board meetings. I know with Mr. DeRue as president, there was a drive to add curricular guided meetings. So we would move towards 2 meetings a month. I've always supported that as well. But what Mr. Rathbund and I concur with, we wanted to go ahead and adopt these meeting dates. So one, we're planning for them for the future, but also so that they're not coming across to the community as special meetings any longer, because we're planning for them, and so it doesn't cause any, undue anxiety, that anything out of the usual is coming up going forward. I will also note, we also have, we did not add in here. I believe Mr. Rathman and we discussed a July date tentative as well that I'd like to add to this. We had discussed July 21st. It's a normal Wednesday. Typically the board doesn't meet in July necessarily, but I wanted to add that date to our list just because of the unusual circumstances with COVID and such. We may have to have approvals to go forward to be able to give guidance from the board on things. So it would be a tentative date at this point, but I wanted, due to it being summer and people may be traveling and such, I wanted it to be out there so everybody could plan around if they wanted to. And of course, as it gets closer, we could always cancel the meeting if it's not necessary at that point. So the board meeting dates are listed in front of you. And do I have any discussion on that? Actually, do I have a motion to approve the establishment of the curricular meetings as presented to our board meeting dates?
Lisa, I would make that motion if I could just add a little caveat to that even if the in-person board meetings are permitted, that to the extent allowed by law, that we be able to participate in the curriculum meetings virtually. And I'm only saying that because I'm not planning on being here during the summer, or there's random days that I'll be traveling for work, and I know some of the other folks travel for work. If it's allowed by law, I prefer to do those virtually than attend in person.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Green to establish the dates, the curriculum meeting dates, but allow virtual meetings for the curricular meetings. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Moses. Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Middlestat, would you call the roll?
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
No.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat, yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Now we have a student enrollment update. Mr. Rathbun, is that going to be?
Yeah, that'll be me. Tim, if I could have you pull up the PowerPoint. So I wanted to talk to the board a little bit about student enrollment and kind of give you a picture of kind of where we were, where we are today, and where we're going. So go ahead, Tim, if you will, and advance it. So you can see here, going back to 2010, our enrollment was just under 6,400. We've had some drop off since then. I want to bring your attention to the 2019. Our enrollment was about 5,800 students. You can see our enrollment dipped this year about 400 all the way down to 5,385 students. And that's from, these are counts based on our fall membership count. So pretty precipitous drop there. This year, we had that super blend, which has really buoyed our finances against a significant drop. But just to give you an estimate of, what we would be talking about if we did not have that super blend, is we'd be talking about close to $3.5 million of deficit funding there, going from what we received in 2019 to what we received in 2020. Next slide, please. So then I want to just show you a little bit about, here's what our capacities are, here's what our current enrollment is, and give you an idea of what our maximum capacity is. So you can see there for the high school, we've got about just under 1,900 students that are currently enrolled there. You can see for middle school north, 726, middle school south, 525. Next slide, please, Tim. And then we've got our elementary capacities here. So you can see all of the capacities there at Ashley, Naldret, Great Oaks, Lighthouse, Lottie Schmidt. We've got our McCants Elementary, and then of course, Sugarbush. So you can kind of see the current enrollment that we have there today. And you can kind of see what the capacity is and then the percent that we're currently utilizing of that capacity.
So Todd, just a quick comment then, just to note that when we look at the total enrollment, it's not just K-5, but we've included other programs in that count.
We have, yes. So we've included, pre-K in there that we get dollars for. It would also include alternative ed.
Right. So for example, in Aldred, you'd subtract the 40 kids that are EC, I always get that messed up.
ECSE.
You'd have about 170 there, and then at Sugarbush, you'd have about 180, subtracting the 30 CI classrooms.
Yes. Yep. All right. Any other questions on that slide? Okay, moving to the next slide.
Oh.
Sorry, I thought I was.
Bless you. You caught me there, Mike. Middle Cities, Middle Cities is an organization that we utilize from time to time to help us with budgeting and enrollment projections. What they do is they have an algorithm that they use based on retention of students for year over year. They look at birth rates, they look at housing starts and different items like that to kind of try and predict what the enrollment will be. So before you look at the graph there, I'm going to have you jump to the bottom. You can see for 2021, if you'll remember, we said we were about 5,375 this year or 5,385 this year. Looks at us going down to about 500 or 5,275 in 2021 or 21-22, sorry. 22-23, 51-69, about another 100 student loss. And you can see there it kind of goes out about 100 student loss the remaining years all the way out to 25-26. So, and then the graph kind of bears that out, just kind of showing you the yellow is indicative of 9 through 12, the purple 6 through 8, and you can see the pre-K through 5th grade at the very bottom in the blue there. So you can see each of those, if you're able to kind of follow that across, is a decline in the amount of students that we're looking at. So it's not just that we have small classes that are going out and large classes coming in, or vice versa. It's really kind of across the board. They're projecting decreases in terms of our student count.
So Todd, so the elementaries look like fairly stable, but the 6th through 8th grade is basically if one middle school's got a capacity, I don't think it's really 1,500, but even so, at North, we've had over 1,000 kids there. And the high school is certainly we've had 2,100 kids there. We're really under utilizing our secondary buildings now that the low enrollments are now going up into the upper grade levels.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're kind of seeing that work its way through. And I think that's right. If you kind of break down what Steve's saying, if you look at our PK through 5 in the graph, you can see there in 21-22, it's 21-66. And it remains relatively constant across into 25-26. So we don't really see much of a decline there. It's really more, we're seeing that decline right in the 6 through 12, 6 through 8, and then through 9 through 12 is where we're seeing those declines. So
yeah, because the elementaries were running about 380 now, but then that 380, we're at the secondary where they were 450 to 500 kids. That 380 is going to drift into the upper levels.
Yep. All right. So any other questions on this slide? If not, I'll move to the next slide. So the reason that we're sharing this information with the board this evening is that we want the board to be aware of these trends. I share this with the board as we will need to address this declining enrollment issue head on. As good stewards of the taxpayer money, we must examine our operations. We need to look at our staffing and our facilities to ensure that we are using our dollars in the best possible way. That speaks to making sure that we right-size the district and be as efficient and effective as we can with our limited funds. So as we look at, even going back to 2010, we're about 6,400 students. We're now down to about 5,400. And if you remember looking at that slide, we were looking at going down even further in 25-26. So with that precipitous drop, it's going to be really incumbent upon us to look at our district, look at our operations, and make sure we're right-sizing the district. The next item on there, the next bullet you see, create broad-based committee. What I'm recommending is that we would reach out to all the stakeholders, including staff, administration, parents, and community, to ensure that we have a broad representation. As we tackle this issue, we want to make sure that we're hearing all of sides of the debate, and with that information, making the best possible decision we can. Out of those committees, we anticipate that we will have data, we'll have findings, certainly some challenges probably along the way, but ultimately we plan on bringing back recommendations to the board about possible solutions as we face this declining issue into the future. All this is aimed at making sure that we right-size our district and shore up our finances. So just a preliminary kind of look at what is going on, and just trying to update the board on some of the initiatives that we as administration will be taking to address this issue. at this point, I think next slide, I'd be willing to take any questions or any concerns, ideas that the board has as we move forward in this endeavor.
Mr. Rathbun, is the 5385 the lowest that we've been at so far this school year?
Yeah, Mr. Richards, that's actually based on our fall count. Every fall, we have a count in very beginning of October. That is our actual audited count as of this October 2020.
When's our next count?
We also have a spring count that typically takes place in about a month or so from now. And those numbers, the way the funding works, I'm not going to talk about this year, but typically how it works is our funding is truly based 90% on the fall count, and then on the spring count, it's a 10%. But we will have another count here in the spring. And then that's really the cycle. We have 2 counts every year.
Do you happen to know, do you feel, have you seen from enrollment data going on this year, are we continually, I know we had about a 400 student loss at the start of this year. Are we continuing throughout the year to lose students, or are you finding them coming back already, or what's the trend within this year so far?
Yeah, I don't know if we've seen a vast change from our October count. We did move forward with an open enrollment for second semester. So that will be wrapping up on Friday. Plan to bring back to the board an update on any numbers related to that open enrollment, how many students we had come back to our district during that period of time. But to be honest with you, Lisa, not much has changed. I don't think we've had a big influx of students since our October count.
Okay.
There seems to be a high demand when you look at our kindergarten classes, something that I spoke to when I was at Ashley Elementary School. Do you see any projections that may help us, when we talk about our kindergarten classes?
Well, I think we're doing some things. As you saw in the projections, I think at the elementary, Mr. Richards, we look to be kind of maintaining where we're at, which is good news. We've also started this year, I believe was the first year, we started a pre-K program, or young fives, I should say, not pre-K, young fives. Sorry, I misspoke. And I think that will be very helpful for our kindergarten classes going forward. We plan to try and expand that program. That's a great feeder program for our district, and really great for our young students out there, getting them ready for the kindergarten the next year. So we'll continue to work on that program. We have a kindergarten roundup coming up here very soon. You should see flyers for that going out very shortly. And so we continue to do those things to bolster our enrollment, and certainly we want to get our kindergartners in, because hopefully if we do a great job with them, we can keep them for 12 years and they can graduate here from Anchor Bay. And that's always our goal.
Mr. Rathbun, are there any indicators if we're staying level with, kindergarten through 5th, where's the disconnect? Where are we dropping, or why are we dropping? And what can we do to correct that?
Well, that's part of what we're hoping to use these committees to try and answer that and really dig in and look at that. Certainly schools of choice is a factor. I will say that. I think that other factors, right now during pandemic, learning are difficult. And I know part of the algorithm that Middle Cities uses is based on, retention from the prior year. So how many of your 3rd graders come back and go into 4th grade? I know this year was very skewed because of pandemic learning. I'm sure that's having a little bit of an impact on the numbers that they are projecting, But we hope to take a deeper dive into that. And those are the exact questions we hope to answer for you, Ms. Knox, and the rest of the board.
Do we know, I hate to compare, I just like to do what we need to do, but do we know how we compare to neighboring districts that are similar in size or even not similar in size? Are they also experiencing a decline? Or is there somebody that's kind of taking all the students that we need to see what they're doing, right?
It's really a birth rate issue because the classes coming in, if you look at the county birth rates, they've been declining. So the kindergarten classes are coming in at 375, but our senior class is going out at 525. So that's part of our structural enrollment decrease that's automatically there, and that won't be resolved for another 7 or 8 years. And that's, so that's a big piece of it that we can't do anything about. What we have to do is entice people to come here, I guess. But the whole state and the whole county, if you look at birth rate data, that's what's kind of killing the enrollment increase.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Middlestat.
And Ms. Knox, I know I did see a graphic not too long ago as well. I believe in all of Macomb County, there was only one district in pertaining to this school year with COVID and the pandemic. There was only one district that actually had a net increase in enrollment. So all of the districts are experiencing, loss of students either to, charter schools or parochial schools. So we're not necessarily alone in that. Although I know our losses might have been a little larger than some, but I don't think we were the worst. And I'll try to share that with you if I can find that one, get back to that.
Well, thank you for educating the newbie.
Mr. Rathbun, can you also maybe explain what we're doing, to the students that have left the district? Are we doing anything to try and get the students back to Anchor Bay that have left the district?
Yeah, so yes, I can definitely speak to that. So one of the things that we did shortly after we started school, you'll remember we started remotely, 100% remotely. We did reach out to a number of our families, a number of our students that had left the district to try and understand why they had left, make sure that they were aware that we were going to return to face-to-face with a face-to-face option in October. We reached out to a number of those students to let them know that and encourage them to come back to Anchor Bay. We did not have a lot of folks who did take us up on that immediately. I think Ms. Birkmeyer's touched on a little bit of the issue, and some of that was a number of our parents in the community took their children to a parochial school or another school. A lot of those parochial schools were pretty smart to require a full year's tuition up front to keep those students. And so we know that we've had a decline there. Homeschooling has become a more popular option. We know that this year. So all of those things have contributed to the decline. All of those are areas that we are focused on in terms of trying to figure out how do we bring our students back? How do we make sure that they're aware of all the things that we're doing here at Anchor Bay to entice them back?
Okay. All right. So I look forward to moving forward on that end and getting that committee going with Mr. Rathbun, and hopefully we can try to make some changes or recommendations so that for the board to consider, so that we can adjust, like you said, right sizing, but also because that will also allow us to be able to devote our budget to our students properly. Right, at this time, we're going to move forward to union communications. If there's any union reps or leaders from Anchor Bay that would like to speak at this time, you can come forward. I'm not seeing any, but I will give it a minute.
Ms. Petron put her thumb up. I don't know if she meant to put her hand up.
Sorry, I don't know how to put my hand up still. You think
Okay, go ahead.
You think after all this time I would know how to do that? First of all, I would like to thank the board. Happy Board Appreciation Month. I would like to send Mr. Rathbun a special thank you. He has been very positive, meeting with us every week and actually listening and caring about our concerns, which is very much appreciated. And we look forward to a positive 2021. And thank you to all.
Okay. Thank you. Any other union communications? Okay. All right. At this point, we're going to move forward with open forum for public comments. Mr. Sizemore, did you have any submissions?
Yeah, we'll start going through them. So here's Brian Powers.
Hello.
Hello, we hear you.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, so this is I think it's the second time or so in the last couple of months that this idea of parent involvement on committees has come up, and the last time there was really never any follow-up in terms of just information on how we can get involved. So I guess I think there's a lot of parents who are ready, willing, and able to get involved. We'd love to have a seat at the table and help. We're passionate about this district and everything it has to offer, as much as some of us have no problem coming to these meetings and voicing our displeasure with things. We also equally want to help provide solutions. So when can we expect to hear more in terms of what's needed, how we can sign up, what kind of committees we can expect to have involvement on and things like that? When can we get more detail on that?
Yeah, we'll have details on that with coming very soon. Actually,
okay. Thank you.
Next week or so.
Great.
And I can say that a few people have reached out to me in the last week or two that they were interested. Mr. Powers, I know you were one of them, and I had a few others. I have set those emails aside so that I make sure that those people get, an invitation, or we include them, because I do understand that there are some people eager, and so I am holding those names so that we make sure that those people are aware of how we're going to go forward. And so I think after this meeting, Mr. Rathbun and I will be discussing, when and how we're going to get this going. And definitely for yourself and for those others individuals, and there will either be, some information that goes out or is posted, and we will definitely share that with ample time for people to see and come on board with us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, I think I had Crystal Ortega next.
Lisa, I would kind of have the same question as Mr. Powers. So would emailing you be the best way to do that at this point as far as being involved on a committee? Mr. Green knows me very well. We've served on other things together, and I'm part of the sports boosters at the high school. I've served on many other boards for other things, not school board, but so I would love to be involved in that. And then obviously you guys have touched on it seems like 100 different things. So budgets and all of that stuff. I realize you guys handle that, but I'm very good at those things. So if you need some help with that, I'd be willing to even do something of that nature, free of charge, of course. If you want a school building clean and need some help to save some money, I'm there. I'll fill out a new volunteer form. I can pass a background check. Always have. This is the first year, obviously, we haven't done that for obvious reasons. But I've done that since I have 3 graduated already, and my last one's in high school. So, I've always done that. But that would have been my question to you guys: is how do we, is it an application, an email to you, which I'll send it to you so you have my name and everything. But you've kind of explained that. And then, Mr. McDonald could probably vouch for me too. Thank you for that. And, whatever you guys need, wherever you need it, And I guess maybe my only other question would be, and I don't want to put Mr. Rathbun on the spot, since we obviously are looking for a superintendent. He did express interest in the newspaper. I realize that none of you guys can say, hey, we want him in there. But if in the event he applies and obviously gets through the process and is the superintendent at some point, because we wouldn't know that, he'd be assigned a number. If he's not, does he automatically just go back to like the assistant superintendent as he was before, if that makes sense to you guys? Or is that something you can't answer at this point?
Well, his contract did imply that he would retain his position as assistant superintendent. Certainly, we'd be happy to have him there. And if he would like to apply as superintendent, he's welcome to do that as well. And then as far as volunteering, you're certainly welcome to email myself. My email is on the Anchor Bay website. If you go to school board, it's listed there. If anyone wants to send it to me, send me their name. I'll be sure when we are putting out that information that I get that along to anybody as well. And we will forward that along.
All right, well then I'll just send you an email, and then however you guys are going to set it up, I'll obviously follow the process. And then like I said before, you guys are doing a great job, and I would love to help even beyond the fact that my kid is going to graduate, because we are going to have to move forward with different things. So, you know, I'm not going anywhere. I've been here. Well, like I said, I've had 3 graduate already, and well, my baby's about to graduate and I'm not having any more, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't assist you guys in any way. So thanks for that. You guys have a great night, and we'll finish this up, I'm sure, here pretty soon. So thanks, Lisa.
All right, thank you. I have Stephanie Richards.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So just happy board month. You guys have done quite a job in the pandemic year. A lot of criticism has come at you guys, but I just wanted to say this meeting has, you know, flowed very well. And that's phenomenal, because we've seen a lot that haven't flowed very well. So it seems productive. I just wanted to compliment that. I'm one to criticize, but I'm also one to compliment. So thank you for that. And that's really all I have today.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any others. If any other board members are seeing something I'm not, please feel free to jump in.
I actually wanted to jump in about the committees, and when you and Mr. Rathbun are putting them together, however you're gonna come up with that, but just to, I think it's wise to indicate not only the scope of the committee, but what the time commitment may be, so people are aware of what they're getting into, and not just, you know, such and such committee and everyone's like, yeah, and then they're like, no, when they get there. So we have, so people know what they're committing to and can find what's going to work best for them. Because that's, we have a lot of really enthusiastic parents, and I want to make sure that their time is valued and that they're, you know, volunteering their time in a way that's going to be most beneficial for us and for them. So just throwing that out there. I'm sure you guys will do great.
Absolutely.
Are you saying, Ms. Knox, just be careful what you ask for?
No, I'm just saying don't waste people's time. Maybe a little bit. Just let everyone know what they're getting into is all I'm suggesting.
Sure. Okay, I'm not seeing any more. I'm not seeing any more for open forum. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Back as I scroll here. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the December meetings that were held December 9th, 16th, and 30th, as well as the January 13th meeting and the financial report?
Motion to consent.
Okay, the motion made by Ms. Knox. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Mr. Green. Any further discussion or questions? Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Whoop. Mike, we need you to unmute.
I'll come back. Mr. Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes.
I think Mr. Moses dropped off and got back on, and he's not a co-host at this time.
So Mr. Richards?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm waiting for Mr. Moses.
Oh,
Yes.
Mike,
There
so
he
yes.
is.
There
Sorry.
he is.
Okay, thank you. Did I get everybody?
I believe so.
All right, thanks.
Okay. At this point, we are going to move into closed session to discuss labor negotiations pursuant to 8C of the Open Meetings Act. Do I have a motion to move forward with that?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Moses. Is there a second?
I second.
And seconded by Ms. Knox. Please call the roll.
I have a question. What's the purpose of the negotiations? What unions or what are we doing?
So to talk about our bargaining strategy moving forward, because I believe our teachers union and most of them will be coming back up for renegotiation.
Okay. All right, Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
No.
Mr. Middlestat, no.
Okay. Motion carries. So it's 9:29. We will move into closed session.
Can we do that at 9:35?
Sure.
Thanks.
I didn't get a link. Am I supposed to be in this as your director of HR or no?
Laura, I can get you a link.
I didn't know if I was supposed to or not. I just don't want to not be there if I'm supposed to.
Yeah, I don't see why not. So we'll have you add in. PM.
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
I'll
motion by Mr. Moses, seconded by Ms. Knox. Can you please call the roll? I don't know if Steve is, oh, there he goes. Okay.
Yep. Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. DeRue,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestat, yes.
Okay. There's no action necessary from our closed session. So at this point, we go to superintendent comments. So Mr. Rathbun, if you have anything additional this evening.
You're
Oh,
muted.
You're still
Can't hear you.
muted, sir.
Thank you. I'll be brief, hopefully, given the hour. But Tim, if I could have you pull up the PowerPoint again, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to start out tonight by thanking the Ira Township for recognizing Anchor Bay District during the School of Choice Week. This is School of Choice Week, and the week is meant to recognize the importance of the quality public education offered by Anchor Bay School District to its students. So a thank you to Ira Township for that recognition. Again, I would also like to extend my thanks to the Board of Education for their service to the district. I know we did this earlier, but I want to also echo, I appreciate the time and effort that each and every board member devotes to our district. I recognize the personal sacrifice that you all make, spending countless hours away from your families to serve our district, and I appreciate that. I welcome our 2 new board members and also wish to acknowledge Marie DeWitt and Janine Akavetti Hendershot for their contributions over the past year. Again, thank you so much, board members, for everything you do. As many of you are aware, this week is also exam week for our high school. We have communicated to our students and our parents, but again, I'd like to emphasize that final exams will be administered and will be modified for pandemic learning. The exam will count as 20% of the final grade and will only be counted if the results increase the student's overall grade. Best of luck to our students as they wrap up our first semester. Finally, Tim, if I can have you pull up that PowerPoint. Is Tim with us?
I am. Which one do you want?
It's at the very end of the PowerPoint that we've been looking at all evening.
Oh, good news.
There we are. Yes, so finally, I'd like to share with the board some activities that have occurred here in the district during the month of January. Tim, if I could have you go to the next slide. First, you see here several murals that our students created to recognize the achievements of Dr. Martin Luther King. We had those at 3 of our different school districts. Next slide, Tim. We also see our SAG crew hit the ground running after the break. You can see here they've a couple support programs for our students, helping our students right now. It's a great thing. We know that mental health is a big deal, so thank you, SAD. Next slide. We also had Lighthouse Elementary celebrating the 80th day of the school at Lighthouse. And what a better way to celebrate than an 80s themed party. So you can see here all of our kids, some of our kids that are in school, and then we've got a couple kids who are remote celebrating 80s. Sadly, much of my wardrobe would fit right in there. So, but moving forward, also want to give you a quick look ahead at what we've got coming up. So on January 28th, half day for students, Elementary Records Day, and secondary exams. We talked a little bit about that. January 29th, we've got no school at the elementary. That's a records day. And we've got a half day at the secondary for exams, and that'll be the final wrap up of exams for them. Also on January 29th, our school of choice window for the second semester comes to a close. And just a couple reminders, February is Black History Month, so we'll be celebrating that inside the school. We also have our Anchor Bay School District Teacher of the Year, and we'll be celebrating that in February. And finally, CTE Month is also celebrated in February, so we'll be highlighting and showcasing some of our CTE programs and a lot of the success that we have there. And then you can see next semester starts on February 1st. From February 12th through the 15th, we'll have our midwinter break. And finally, on February 16th, as we touched on earlier, I believe, kindergarten registration and K-12 schools of choice will open for the 21-22 school year. That concludes my report, unless there are any additional questions that I can answer for the Board of Education.
Okay. We're going to move on to board comments. I'm just going to kind of go around just so that we're not trying to interrupt one another. So I will start with Ms. Knox, if you have anything to add, or you can pass, or. Oh, you're muted, ma'am.
such a rookie mistake. Just wanted to thank the district for our gift today. That was, like Lisa said, unnecessary, but very much appreciated. I look forward to watching that video again and seeing some of the kids that I know. And I wanted to thank the ABA who left a gift basket, like a welcome basket, which was very considerate and, again, unnecessary. I love all the parents wanting to get involved, and just looking forward to a good rest of 2021. Not sure it can get worse than it was last year. So that's it. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Moses?
Yeah, I would like to thank the school for the nice gift and the ABA for their nice gift. But I also want to state that the real appreciation needs to go out to the administration and the school teachers, the kitchen workers, the bus drivers, the maintenance staff, the parents, and the kids. Without it, we don't have this great school. I'm really thrilled about hopefully the directions that we're going to be able to go in, the great things we're going to be able to do, and let the whole world know what we've always known, that Anchor Bay is the best, and I can't wait to move in that direction. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mr. DeRue.
I'd echo what Mr. Moses just said. I have not been home yet to note, but I did get an email that there's something on my porch. So, but I thank you in advance of getting home tonight. I don't like going backwards, but since it seems like he wants to come back and say some things about how things were run, Mr. Carruthers, for the parents that are out there, just want to throw a few facts out there. I don't want to go down that road again, but it's almost like I don't know it. The investigation was done by an outside attorney that I hired. That's a fact. The fact that the board made a motion to give me that authority to do that. The school district paid for it because who else was going to pay for it? That did not mean they ran the investigation. I did not run the investigation. There had to be a point person, but it was all run by Ms. Champa. If the board, the current board, or if we're going to go down this road even more, we can call her back in and she can answer to any integrity type questions that may be out there. Another fact is all 7 board members voted to remove you. You were not, you lost your position because of the Air Force, not because of Anchor Bay. So I'm trying to move forward. I only want to put out facts so that parents aren't, I get these questions around town at times over this JRLTC. It's like the never ending gift. It was an investigation that the board wanted by 4 board members. We had an investigation by an outside attorney who's never worked in school law, so that I tried to get somebody that was completely impartial, had a history of doing independent investigations, and that's what she did. I'll let her answer to any of those type. So I just, this narrative out there that something was done wrong and you were wrongly lost your job. A fact of the matter is you turned in a report and you lied to the military, and you're the military man. The military took you out, not us. So again, if there's new board members who want to discuss this, we can discuss this. If we're going to continue to go down this road, you likened it to what I said at the last meeting where I said something was set up and that I put my heart and soul. Yeah, I put my heart and soul into this, as do, I'm sure, all 6 other board members here. It did not surprise me what happened last meeting at all. Pat and I, we go back, we have differences of opinion, but we agree at times and we work together. I may not have liked the result of the last meeting, but it is what it is. It doesn't surprise me. Some other things surprised me, and that's why I made the comment of the setup. But unlike you, I'm not trying to downplay the district. I'm going to work with all 6 of the people on this board. And I'm going to try to not have these conversations again. But don't come on here and question my integrity or my ethics or what I did as board president. So with that, I just want the parents to know those facts that were out there. And as far as the last meeting, I'm good with it. Mr. Green and I had a great finance committee meeting 2 nights ago or whatever. We're going to work together. Ms. Birkmeyer and I, we've had many discussions in the past. We may have personal differences when it comes to politics or comes to different things, but her heart and soul is in the district. I've told people out there, she's a very intelligent woman. She's got great goals and ideas for the district. So I'm going to work with every single person on this board that will work with me. With that, and like I always talk and people use it against me, but I got on this board to do things for kids. And one of the big things is, as a construction guy, as a union plumber, I've been wanting to get to where we build a house or where we do something more with our construction trades program. I've been working with Ms. Kenward, Mr. Cusmano, Mr. Rathbun. I mean, they're their leads. They're the professionals. I'm only offering my help as a board member and as a professional in the discipline of plumbing. But I'm happy to say that it's moving forward. Mr. Cusmano has many connections as well. And, there'll be more stuff coming to the board down the line, but obviously funds like we've talked about tonight might be an issue, but I've reached out to a lot of different trades that are willing to help out. And we're hoping to build a house either next year or the year after, but I'll save it for a future meeting. But I just think that there's a lot of good things going on in this district, and there's a lot of good things this board can do. And I hope as board members, we'll stay going forward and not looking backwards. So with that, I hope everybody has a good night, and thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Richards?
I'd like to echo Mr. Drew and Mr. Moses on thanking the entire Anchor Bay staff. I'd also like to congratulate the Anchor Bay Hosted Club. I'm looking forward to the state championship in April. Congratulations to middle school South student of week 3, Brett McCleary and Connor Young. Keep up the hard work. Congratulations to Megan Buchan on being selected by Ferris State University Women's Soccer Program. I'd like to remind everyone that Trini's Mexican Carryout is offering a fundraiser on Monday, February 1st for Ashley Elementary School, on Monday, February 8th for Great Oaks. Take a night off from cooking and help support our schools. I'd like to thank Anchor Bay alumnus Jacob Calebs for speaking with our high school honors physics class about life after high school, how to apply for scholarships, and what actions the students should be taking to set themselves up for success. I'd like to thank the staff at Lottie, McCants, Ashley Elementary Schools, as well as Middle School South for taking time out of your day to meet with me and show me around your schools. I'd like to also thank Todd Rathbun for meeting with me. I look forward to working with you and the entire Anchor Bay staff. Thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Middlestat?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of the comments everybody else made. Despite all the issues for the first semester, I think we're going to wrap this thing up, and hopefully next semester will be more enlightening and run a lot smoother than this semester. And again, all the staff, thank you for all the work you've done. And it's been quite an experience with the virtual classrooms and how that operates. You get a little bit of it's one of those little areas where you can get an eye into a classroom that you probably never got before. And it's just kind of, it's enlightening how much goes into educating our kids. So I really appreciate the staff. And again, it's all support staff, administration also. So thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Green?
I guess ditto. When you go second to last, everything else has been said, and I appreciate my board members, recognizing all of our staff, our teachers, the bus drivers, custodians, our food service people. It's been an interesting school year, and I appreciate their dedication. And I tell them that when I'm in the buildings or when I see them in Kroger or other places out around town. they've done a great job through difficult circumstances. So I certainly appreciate that. And I do appreciate Mr. Drew's comments. We actually did have a pretty decent finance meeting. We actually had a little bit of fun there, maybe some at Mr. Rathbun's expense, and some of the staff had some fun at Mr. Drew and I's expense. And that's fine too, because that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be open communication where they have a chance to come in front of the committee and we can freely just share ideas. So I thought it was a great meeting as well. So I'm glad, John, you mentioned that. And again, welcome aboard to our new 2 board members. As I already said to Ms. Knox tonight, be careful what you wish for, because you're all in now. And once you're in, we suck you in. You're ours now. So, congratulations again on the election. I'm glad to see you guys on the board. I think you're going to make a solid difference, and welcome to the team. Aside from that, I'm looking forward to exams being over with. I have a senior in high school. And his senior year isn't going anything near what I had planned. He's making the best of it. I'm still hoping for a prom and possibly a scholarship basketball game and some other stuff that's going to take place, but a lot of that's out of our control even at district level. So those decisions will be made at a state level. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that our athletes can get back to playing. I know we've got basketball and all of our other winter, early spring sports, whatever we're calling them now, because I don't know when they're starting and when they're ending. They're practicing now, but unfortunately any contact sport isn't permitted. So let's hope that the state as a whole has a come to senses type discussions and decisions made this week, and we get our kids back into sports, because it's just as important a part as the school experience is being around your friends and physically being in the classrooms. Thanks.
Thank you. And I can really echo everything that all of the board members have said. Thank you again for the board appreciation that's gone around from the ABEA and administration. I had some great meeting with Mr. Rathbun last week. I look forward to working together. I think we'll do real well together. And thank you to all the board members. I think we had a very productive meeting. And I just look forward to working with everybody and going forward in a positive light. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I think that was everybody. So we'll pick Mr. Green and seconded by Mr. Moses. Go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Moses,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Drew,
Yes.
Mr. Middlestate, yes, thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned at 10:50. Good night and be safe, everybody.
Right.